brought a couple articles.
Oh, I'll be darned. This is Ted Anderson, the yo-yo champ to perform at the Senior Center.
Yep. I think you saw this.
This one I've got a copy of.
Down
yeah.
in Puerto Rico.
Yeah. Take a look at these, Melita. And also we've got a copy of a letter that Ted carried around that allowed him into any school in Puerto Rico.
I think I saw
This one I got a
it.
picture of too.
Oh,
That's from your original picture, in fact.
yeah. This was at the home down here.
September 1st, 1999. That's a big yo-yo.
Yeah.
Chuck, why don't you let me take those and go copy them and I'll bring them back.
Okay.
Then I'll just
Okay.
have a copy of everything.
And this one I haven't seen before.
Oh, that's when I was in the Navy.
Now, I suppose so you started demonstrating when you got back from the Navy? Was there a gap in between
Yeah.
there? Or? Okay. Well, Russ is going to copy these, if that's
Okay.
okay.
And that was the,
Oh, uh-huh. Lucky Meisenheimer.
yeah.
So where did-
You should see his place.
He's
his
a
home.
doctor, isn't he?
Yeah,
Yeah.
his home, his yo-yo collection is just, he's got, I'd say 5,000 yo-yos.
So he probably has every yo-yo that he's got
Oh,
in here, huh?
everything is in here he's got.
Anyway, those all sound like reasonable questions?
Yeah, I
Okay.
think I'll have a little on dates.
Mm-hmm.
I'm missing a lot of dates, but I can get the information.
Well, you don't have to do that, just gloss over the date,
Yeah,
you know. It's not that important anyway, probably.
no, it doesn't matter, really, when I started or when I stopped, but
Yeah, yeah. Melita is here, she's on a workforce program. She just graduated this last spring.
yeah, here for
And-
what?
Yeah, and anyway, she's working for us all summer, and it's through, you know, with the stimulus program and so on.
Good.
This is kind of her first job, and I think this is probably her first interview too.
Good,
So anyway, how's your summer been?
been fine.
And you said your wife was having a few
Yeah,
medical
she's
problems? or-
been having trouble with, she had a disease that's very painful in her back and her belly and stuff.
Mhm, mhm.
So we had to put her in emergency a couple times,
Oh, no.
and then they kept her in the hospital
Mhm,
at St. Croix for about a week,
mhm.
and it disappeared. They got rid of it for her. I can't even think of the name of it, what it was now, but
Yeah. So she sounded bright and chipper today on the phone.
she's better, yep,
Yeah.
much better.
Good, good.
And we celebrated our 52nd wedding anniversary
Yeah.
yesterday.
Well, congratulations.
Thank you. A lot of years.
Yeah, 52 years is that's a long time.
Yep.
So I'm trying to remember now. I knew Bob pretty well,
Uh-huh.
and we went out to eat a few times with Tom Lindsay.
Oh,
And then, what other brothers did you have? besides-
Paul.
Paul, oh, I remember
He
Paul.
was a
yeah.
muskie fisherman
Yeah,
from
yeah.
Bone Lake.
He and I went sailing a couple of times.
Yeah,
Harold Lindgren had an old sailboat.
yeah.
Yeah.
And they revised that, or built a sailboat,
Yeah.
he and Harold.
Okay, well, the one that I sailed in was an old seaboat. I don't know if you know sailboats that well, but it was probably built by White Bear Boat Yards in White Bear, Minnesota.
Bedores. Did you know Frank
You
Bedore
know,
on Bone Lake?
yeah, I know,
He used to have 3,000 feet in Lakeshore.
yeah, I know who the Bedores are, and I met some of them. Frank Warner is the one that I knew better. And, but anyway, was that his sailboat?
Yeah, they had a seaboat.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're good sailors.
Oh, yeah.
Anytime.
Okay, what do you want to do with this?
What? That's on.
Oh, it is?
I'm running.
Okay.
You're live.
Okay, I'm just gonna.
I wouldn't have said that about you if I'd known
Oh,
that.
well, that's all right.
So you gotta speak loudly now, and if you don't speak loud enough, we'll have to do the whole thing over. Okay, go ahead.
Tell me your family history and what it was like growing up in Luck.
Well, it's been a very interesting life growing up in Luck. I enjoyed going to grade school here, and high school, and my folks owned a Fairway store here in Luck, and I worked in there a number of years. And I worked for Carlson Candy. They were also in Luck here. And I went to school in Superior at college for a couple of years. And then I left Luck and went into the Navy. And that's just a little bit of the brief of what's been going on.
What was the Navy like?
The Navy was enjoyable. I was on a hospital ship I worked in the surgery in the operating room aboard ship, and we did 10,000 major operations aboard ship, and I scrubbed for most of them, which was you scrubbed your hands and put on rubber gloves, and you assisted the doctors in all the different surgeries.
How did you become interested in yo-yos? And how did you get your first yo-yo?
Well, I got interested in the yo-yos because Duncan had a yo-yo factory here. And just about every woman in town had the chance to make strings or work at the factory making yo-yos. And this one here is called a jewel yo-yo. And a lot of the women sat all day long putting in these jewels in the yo-yos. And then at night, they brought home these units to make strings, because every yo-yo had to have a string. And they made hundreds and hundreds of strings. People in Milltown, Frederick, all around the area. Anybody that wanted to make a little extra money, they could make strings. I think at one time they were making 5,000 yo-yos a day. And of course, everyone had to have a string. So everybody was kept busy here doing yo-yo. And out on Bone Lake, Duncan built a cabin up on the northwest corner. And the different yo-yo people could bring their wives and family to this cabin and stay there all all summer. Well, you didn't sell yo-yos in the summer because everybody had a baseball glove or a bat in their hand. So the yo-yos, the only time they really sold good was in the winter and spring. So, but Then we had the Fairway store, and these people would come into our store and buy groceries, and they talked me into coming out to the cabin, and they started teaching me how to play the yo-yo. And pretty soon, all of a sudden, I knew I was good enough to go on the road with them.
When and how did you get the demonstrator job?
That was through through these different fellows. They had groups. They'd have 3, 4 guys with each group to go out and demonstrate in the different cities. I started in Evansville, Indiana, then went to Atlanta, Georgia, then down to Birmingham, Alabama, and then to Tampa, Florida, and Miami, Fort Lauderdale, all the different cities, and we set up contests. Duncan was very smart. They didn't put any yo-yos in a town until we demonstrators were going to be going there. And then the American News Company, they distributed yo-yos, and Duncan had them, magazines, and Duncan had them distribute yo-yos also. And so that every drugstore, every dime store, every little corner store that sold magazines also got yo-yos. And those yo-yos were put in on consignment. What they didn't sell, they pick up, give them credit, and kid couldn't buy a yo-yo if he wanted to, because there wasn't any left in town. So then the next year we do the same thing. Before we moved in to demonstrate yo-yos, they'd load the town up with yo-yos, so every kid, and then they'd put up signs all over. Every store window had a yo-yo sign in the window. And then we'd go in and hold contests at all the different schools and at the dime stores. And then every theater stage, we did yo-yo shows on Saturday and Sunday afternoons. And that was the only time they filled the theaters, was when we'd have yo-yo contests. And there wouldn't even be room to sit. They'd be standing around the back of the theaters just to be in there and take part in the contest. And we gave away footballs, helmets, baseball gloves, and every kid that came to the contest got either a free Pepsi, free Coke, or free ice cream, because the sponsors would give us cards to hand every kid. And so we really drew a lot of interest. That's how we got going. And then we'd have a city contest on the last day, and we'd give away motor scooters, bicycles, to the champion of the city. That was and the families would come there, and your mom and dad and grandpa and grandma, everybody wanted to see their kid play yo-yo, you know. So it was a very, very interesting job.
What kind of tricks did you do?
Pardon?
What kind of tricks did you do?
Well, at first you had to know how to do walk the dog, rock the baby, around the world, over the falls, 3-leaf clover, and then I learned to do the dog bite. That's when the dog bites you in the seat of the pants. And I know that that's going to come up. And probably the most embarrassing thing was when I told the story, I ended it with the dog biting him in the seat of the pants. And what was embarrassing is when you said, and the dog bit him in the seat of the pants, and you threw the yo-yo down and it wouldn't catch on, and it would come back up in your hand, and you've already said, and the dog bit him in the seat of the pants. That was very embarrassing.
What were different kinds of yo-yos that you used?
Well, there's only really one yo-yo and that was a wood yo-yo. Plastic yo-yos, see, this is one piece of wood, and it wouldn't spread apart, and you couldn't push it tighter together. The plastic ones, they became loose, and they'd get wider apart, or they'd go together so far the string wouldn't fit in there. So the only really yo-yo that I would use when I was on theater stages and on television and stuff was the good old-fashioned Duncan wood yo-yo, because you knew that was going to stay the same.
Which one was your favorite? Which one was your favorite?
My favorite yo-yo
Yeah.
was the regular Duncan wood yo-yo.
Okay. What was it like working with Duncan? Any Donald Duncan stories?
It was very interesting. We'd only stay in a city maybe 2 to 3 weeks, and then, but it was always fun to come into a city and find a nice hotel to stay in. They were very good about our expense accounts. That we had 2 expense accounts. One was for travel, and one of the other was for living. You're living in the city that you were working in. Then right away you got commission. So that was a separate account, and that you could draw out. As long as you had money in that account, you could draw out any amount from your commission. They were very good to work for. Fine outfit.
How were you paid? Hourly, salary, X?
I'm sorry?
How were you paid? Hourly, salary, X?
It was on commission. And every week, every Friday, we'd get a notice of how much commission you had coming and what they'd allow you to draw out of that.
Where did you travel and what was it like?
Where did I start?
Where did you travel?
Oh, I traveled, I think I mentioned that I started out in Evansville, Indiana, and then went to Atlanta, Birmingham, and you work south with the weather, so that when fall came, you were where it was warm, in Miami or Tampa, St. Pete, one of those places.
What kind of people did you meet in your travels?
You met all different kinds. The best and most interesting were the kids, because I don't care where we lived, people found out, or the kids found out where we lived, and they'd come around every night and want to learn some more tricks. And of course, we would be very willing to be outside with the kids at night and under a street light or someplace where they could learn to play the yo-yo, because they all wanted to become yo-yo champions and win the contest, you know. So it was very interesting.
Was it difficult to raise a family while you traveled?
Yes, that it was, because back in those days, we took our children right with us, and a lot of time when they were very young, the babies, you had to find a place to heat the milk. And some of you'd go to some of those little cities and they'd be out of power, so you couldn't heat the milk. So then you had to find a restaurant that had gas, and then they would heat the water and heat the milk for us. So it was difficult traveling with children.
What was the most unforgettable yo-yo experience for you?
Most
Unforgettable?
unforgettable? I think the most unforgettable was the crowds that we used to get in the theaters. I went to theaters that only blacks were allowed, and we would fill that theater absolutely jam full. And like I mentioned before, there would be so many kids there and parents that they just stood up around around the edge of the theater, and that was very pleasant to see all the people that used to show up for our contest.
Who was the most interesting or important person you met?
Well, one time I was in South Bend, Indiana, and I was putting on a yo-yo show, and Dwight D. Eisenhower was to speak at the courthouse there. And so I got a chance to shake hands with him and meet him at the courthouse there, or the Capitol in Indiana. That was very interesting.
What did you do when the Duncan Yo-Yo factory closed?
At that time, let's see. I don't recall what happened there.
What are you doing now?
What I do now, I'm retired. I was down in Florida for 32 years, and I retired from Walt Disney World, and I also retired from, before that I retired from the state of Wisconsin because I worked with zoning at the Polk County level. So I got a retirement from there, which is awfully nice, and from Disney. And of course, when you get Social Security, that kind of helps. So I'm very happy.
Was there anything really cool that you liked at Disney World when you were working there?
When I worked at Disney, you couldn't beat that. That was absolutely super. And every place I worked at Disney, I also entertained the people coming to the parks. And Typhoon Lagoon, that was my favorite, working there. And I used to put on a yo-yo show every morning from about an hour before the park opened. I would go out front and put on a yo-yo show, and that was very, very exciting and a lot of pleasure.
Yes or no?
Anything else you'd like to add, Ted?
I can't think of what it would be.
Okay.
How
But
many years?
I've had a great life.
Ask him how many years you worked at Disney. How many years were you at Disney?
20.
20 years.
Yep. Yep, I got a beautiful ring from there for 20 years, and of course, after 20 years you get it so you can retire too. So
Right, right.
So after all those years of demonstrating yo-yos, did the tricks change, as the years went by?
well, the yo-yos changed. They put on those different axles, and you could spin a yo-yo for 2 minutes. Whereas one of these you could only spin for a few seconds, But after they got those axles put in there, you see those kids with them.
Mm-hmm.
They just go forever.
I heard that back in the old days that you used to take a stock yo-yo and you would soup it up a little bit so it would do better tricks.
I don't know if you knew Walt Bideen. He used to work at the yo-yo factory. And he had a lathe there. And he'd take a bunch of yo-yos for me, and he put it on the lay and put fine sandpaper and sandpaper the axle. Sometimes there was a rough edge inside the yo-yo, and you'd be doing the tricks, and those edges would cut off your string. All of a sudden, your string would go across the stage. I mean your yo-yo, because it cut the string off. So I always made sure that even when Walt wasn't around, I'd take a real fine sandpaper and do the inside of the yo-yo, so that didn't happen. Because that's another thing that was embarrassing, when that yo-yo went across the stage. But there is a lot of difference in yo-yos now. I haven't even attempted to try one, because I've just lost all momentum for throwing a yo-yo. In fact, I don't even think I could spin a yo-yo anymore.
All those years that you worked for Walt Disney, did you ever meet Walt?
No. Walt, one time, when I first started, let's see, Walt had died, but in the castle, they were going to build him a place where he could go and stay. Instead of having to go to a hotel or anything, they were going to take, in the castle they built up on the second or third floor, they built an apartment for him. Just absolutely beautiful. And it's still there today, and every once in a while they have it take a drawing of all the people in the park, and they get a chance to stay there overnight in that apartment, which is, most people can't believe it when it's so beautiful.
But after all those years of traveling and living in Florida, is it nice to come home to Luck again?
I should let my wife speak for me. She's very, very disappointed in the winters. Everybody has said, oh, the winters aren't as bad as they used to be, but it still gets 32 below, you know. So we have tried to go down every year in the winter for a while and stay, especially when it gets below zero. But she does miss Florida, especially in the winter.
Well, Melita, anything else that you could think of? Well, thank you, Ted, very much.
You're so welcome. Very welcome.
And we can see what we have now. I think we need Russo.